Hello and welcome to Pivotal People. Today we're going to be speaking to Gary Hargreaves. Gary is partner at FRP Advisory Trading Limited. Hello Gary, thank you very much for joining us at Pivotal People.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Really nice to see you today. If we can go back and tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up and what sort of inspired you to go on and do what you did and how the path to get into where you are.
I grew up in a very working class family in the Northwest. A hard work ethic was always instilled into me as the key to success. I didn't like school. That didn't necessarily stop me working hard. I didn't do that great at school, didn't really like it, couldn't wait to leave and get a job. Found a job in NatWest, which is what a lot of people did.
Yep.
Just get a job in the bank in 1991 now. Found something I was good at, found something I enjoyed, found something that I could progress in. Stayed there for 13 years, but sort of 3 years in, at the age of around 19, had a life-changing moment where I went to York University, where my brother was studying economics, sat in one of his lectures and realised the information that I'd picked up in the 3 years in NatWest kind of made me know stuff that I didn't even know that I knew.
Yeah.
I was sat there watching him write things down and I knew what he was writing down.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how I knew something he didn't, because he's always been the brighter one. And that changed everything. I realised that if I'm going to get anywhere in life, I'm going to have to go back to school, get some qualifications, and that started me on a path that didn't pretty much stop for about 13 years at night school, from a HNC in business and finance, a degree, an MBA, Spanish lessons, and then that sort of culminated in me sort of ending my banking career in around 2004 to start. And throughout that I'd done a lot of property work, general corporate finance, and specialised in healthcare finance during that period, which is the genesis of how I got into healthcare. Left banking in around 2005 to start a property company that's still going today. Got into my current role because we had a deal that went wrong. We appointed receivers, and then I got offered a job by the receivers that we actually appointed, decided that insolvency was a good idea, and I liked the idea of corporate restructuring. So then did two further other qualifications, and I'm now a licensed insolvency practitioner, specialising in property finance and the restructuring of failing healthcare businesses. So I kind of specialise in talking to providers who are struggling, and there are a lot out there, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Specialise in presenting to banks that have healthcare clients that are struggling also. So that could be, relationship managers on the front line, the risk teams before they get to the recoveries teams, and also the recoveries teams, and then giving advice as to what the options are for failing care homes. So that culminated in me deciding to then do the MVQ level qualification and become a registered care home manager.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
Oh wow.
So I think I'm the only IP in the country who's a qualified care home manager. Yeah. So it was as much as to promote myself and learn knowledge as much as anything, but 12 months of doing the exam. And it's helped me when I'm talking to providers and managers to have credibility, and also lenders when they're wanting to know the person who they're taking advice from knows what they're actually talking about.
Absolutely.
And my involvement in the care sector in restructuring, where I am now, is sort of stemmed from my early involvement in some jobs in the sort of early 2010s, where care homes are failing.
Yeah.
Got reinvigorated the interest that I had in corporate banking, got more and more involved in what we were doing, more and more detail, trying to turn care homes around. And then it's just continued from there, really. So, even now I present to banks and providers on just things like, what are your options? Do you know what your options are? Where do you think you're going wrong? How can we improve where you are? Sometimes there's a cost to that, sometimes there's no cost. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, providers are struggling and they can't see the wood from the trees. Yeah. And it takes someone, like myself, to sort of point out where other people have failed and other people have been able to turn it around. One of the first questions I ask people is, what's your occupancy strategy? 9 times out of 10, their answer is to fill the home. Mm-hmm. That's not really a strategy. That's the outcome of the strategy. So when you press them, okay, well, how are you going to achieve that? 9 times out of 10, the answer is we just call the local authority. That's also not a good strategy because you look desperate. So what else are you doing beyond that to try and get people and leads and referrals into your home? And more often than not, I get a blank look. So I'll spend an hour going through, right, these are all the different things you should be doing. And a lot of that is, unfortunately, a lot of providers are not adult social care people that run care homes for a living. They are GPs or pharmacists or entrepreneurs who have bought care homes in the past, are not close to them, don't really know the detail as to how they can be turned around, don't really know the detail as to how they got to where they are. Yeah. And because they don't know the detail, they don't have the strategy to turn it around because they don't really understand how they got to where they are. And 99 times out of 100, failing provider strategy will be to cut costs at a maniacal level, which is probably the worst thing you can do, because all that does is demotivates your manager, which demotivates the staff, which causes issues in the home, issues with compliance, issues with the local authority, and then you get into the vicious spiral that is pretty much irrecoverable.
How does your brother feel about being the one that set you on this course?
He's fully aware of his golden child status,
Of course, but he's quite, I'm sure he's quite happy that he was the instigator for your...
He is, but edit this bit out for him.
Fantastic. The turnaround that you do is very similar to the turnaround that we do.
Yes.
In fact, we turn around from a compliance side, you turn around from a commercial side. But I think a lot of the issues are that the care home managers themselves, having done the qualification, you'll understand, don't have that commercial head usually.
No, one thing you learn when you do the qualification is it doesn't prepare you to run a care home.
No.
Absolutely it doesn't. There's no focus on marketing, strategy, HR. If you're a manager, realistically you're on mid-40s, say, in a good care home, you have to be HR, a strategist, finance people, and 9 times out of 10, care home managers are not engaged in the business. They are not motivated to make sure that home makes more profit. So on occasions where, and I have to caveat this with, I only generally see the failing care homes. So there's hundreds and hundreds of care homes out there that do really well. I don't see that many of them because there's no need for my services. So I have to caveat what I say, that I only see the failing ones, and they all have a lot of the same traits. And the managers are absolutely fundamental to the success of the home. And if the provider's not communicating with the manager, good managers will leave because they're so in demand. Good staff will leave because if the manager's disengaged, the staff become disengaged. And once that happens, it's almost irrecoverable. And one of the things I always talk to providers about is you have to get your staff engaged in the business, and that could be as simple as having process champions. So someone who does medications, well, you give her a title, she's a medicines champion, all of a sudden her morale's boosted, and you do that across the board, and you've got identifiable people who can then take charge, and that improves compliance, which should improve your rating, and so on and so on. Little baby steps along the way, are simple and no cost to the provider to do, but the provider who's an entrepreneur and has 5 other businesses would never think of anything like this.
No. I think and a lot of those people now use people like us to act as nominated individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we take on that particular role. But it's a much tighter squeeze now with the costs going up, with minimum wage increases, and with the local authorities paying very little.
One thing I always say to lenders and providers is, look, I can give you my analysis. That doesn't work unless your side is done as well. So I know a lot of the compliance. I don't know it as well as you do or anything close to what you do, but they've both got to run hand in hand. There's no point me saying, okay, well, if you get this many new residents in, you could cost this much. Well, that doesn't work unless you can get the compliance right and your rating back to where you need it to be. So finance and compliance and strategy go hand in hand. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of the failing providers will take advice too late. And
definitely.
The horse is already bolted, unfortunately. They are at a stage where it's almost irrecoverable. And one of the unknowns in my job is, what reputation does the local authority, does the home have with the local authority? More often not a very good one. And in turn, the CQC would also be in the same ballpark, as they don't like this home, they're coming down on this home, and the more safeguardings, the more complaints, the vicious spiral just keeps going and going, and it's almost irrecoverable. More times than not, than I get involved, and unfortunately sometimes it results in closures, but we do our best to try and avoid that. But early intervention from everybody is vital, and support. The care system is going to fall apart, in my opinion, if all the stakeholders don't come together. That's including GPs, MDTs, social workers, care providers, local authority and the CQC. Care homes are under massive financial pressure already, and when the national minimum wage goes up and the national insurance increases happen in April, who knows? Because the fee increases are not going to be sustainable for care homes, certainly at the smaller SME end. And use a silly example, a bottle of olive oil costs £9 now. 2 years ago it was £3. You extrapolate that across a care home and
Absolutely.
the cost increase is just huge, and businesses just won't survive. You can make as many economies as you like below the line, but if the top line isn't getting increased fee income that's very well deserved, then no business is going to survive.
No.
And part of the bigger problem, and rightly so, is care homes under much more scrutiny already from families, next to kin and the regulators to provide care, and person-centred care. That's all very difficult if you don't have the funds to do it, because when you stop making money, training stops, person-centred care stops, all the nice things that you do stop. And I can see far more care homes closing in the next few months, because when the national minimum wage increases come in, that creates a ripple effect across any care home, across any business really, where you've got people on the minimum wage. So your carer on the bottom rung gets a £1 increase. Well, the senior carer above her will either go, well, I want that increase, or catastrophically will just say, actually, I'll drop down now. I don't need to be a senior carer. I want to be a carer and not have the responsibilities. That creates all kinds of issues in terms of running a business, because you've got to have so many senior carers, obviously. And who knows how that's going to play out. And part of the problem, and I've seen it in many care homes that I've dealt with, is a lot of the staff on there are on universal credit. They're not allowed to earn more than obviously they're allowed to do under the universal credit limit. So you get a lot of staff phoning in sick, so they don't earn more.
That's right, or they'll drop their hours.
Yeah, they'll drop their hours, and that creates logistical operations for a care provider. And if these hours, the rate per hour is going to increase, I can see a lot more staff wanting to reduce their hours or drop down from senior carer to carer. And that creates all kinds of issues, as I say, for just the basic running of a care home just overnight. Yeah. And, in their defence, they get the benefits. They're not going to want to lose the benefits, but they can't go beyond their allotted income, otherwise they get taxed heavily. And would I do the same thing? I probably would if I was them, but that doesn't help the person running the care home, and I'm not sure a lot of them have sort of mapped this out yet.
No, that's a very good point actually. And the other thing that we're seeing is the private rates going up massively. Yeah. So the private payers are subsidising the local authority payers.
I think a lot of the families that I talk to, they want something in return. What's my quid pro quo for that? You want another X £100 a week, well, what do I get for it? Otherwise there are other homes I'm going to put my relatives in, and that's happening. But the staffing issue is a huge problem for the care sector. Yeah,
it is, and always has been actually, and certainly in nursing homes, getting good quality nursing in the care homes is really tough.
It is, and one of the things I found in my job, a lot of the homes that struggle have a dual sort of nursing and other. And when you've got that occupancy mix that's spread out, it's very difficult to run economically and profitably, because nurses are expensive. They're very difficult to get good ones. They're quite transient. They'll move around a lot because they can do. Or a lot of them will join agencies because they know, I'm in this care home today, I'm going to the one over the road and I'll get £10-20 per hour more. And why would you not if you can earn that money? All right, they don't get the security of a full-time employment, but I don't think they think about that.
No, a lot of the care homes are getting rid of their nursing.
They're handing the registrations back, aren't they? And which again creates another issue for the local authorities who need to get people at hospitals. So without everybody working together, hospitals, GPs and care homes, it's catastrophic, I think, potentially.
Can we turn this around?
It's difficult to turn any business around if you don't have income coming at the top line. Care homes, by their nature, have a finite level of income that they can make. So you're either driving care home businesses to go towards fully private, which is difficult in a lot of working class areas. Certainly in the northwest, for example, there's not the private people around, and they will then get to cherry pick. But it's difficult to see an industry turning around when fee increases are at 1.5%-2% and costs are going up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% across the board. It's difficult to see it surviving because costs are not going to come down. Food doesn't come down. Training, professional fees, food costs, are only going to increase. Utilities are huge. Not many businesses use much more heating and lighting than a care home. So without that further increase on the top line, how does any business survive? Because your costs are just going to increase exponentially. In addition to that, you've got staffing issues where you've either got your staff wanting to drop down, or they'll leave, or they can't do the hours that they did, so you've then got to get people coming in to do random bits of hours here and there, which is extremely difficult. To do that consistently is even more difficult. You've got next to kin, the CQC are in the news this morning, unfortunately, and not in a good way. And that kind of press only increases scrutiny on everybody.
Yeah.
The regulators want more. The CQC are expecting more. They want more and more spreadsheets filling in, more and more records filling in, and the expectations of the local authority are higher.
Yeah.
Person-centred care. So all this is just increases the operational burden on a care home that a manager on £40,000 is not equipped to run. No. Unfortunately.
No.
Again, I stress this is at the level that I see. There are many other care homes businesses who run successfully, but for those who don't have a provider that is in their hands-on 24/7, I just don't see how they're going to survive without the government paying a lot more money. And adult social care is obviously the biggest expense of any local authority, and there's talk in the press today about increasing council tax by 10 and 25% to stop local authorities going bankrupt. So without significant government intervention, I don't see how it's going to survive. No.
What about you? What about your future? What do you see your future?
I'm continuing to help, lenders on a weekly, monthly basis, talk to their customers to help try and, not educates them, not the right word, I don't think, but give them the tools to say, okay, we've got this provider here who's struggling. Early intervention is critical. So that might be getting me in to meet them for a day, an hour for free, just talk to them, go through the sort of things that I see to help them turn around. But I think a lot of my time in the next few months or year could be spent helping providers wind down their businesses.
Yeah, which is sad, isn't it? It's sad that we're going to lose a lot of good people because...
Yeah, and the only way some might survive is because others close.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of insolvencies in the care sector at the moment, which is good.
Good.
But I think that's hidden by the fact that I think people are just handing contracts back. They're not going to banks and handing the keys in or wanting to appoint administrators, because that's very costly, unfortunately, and it's very difficult because when I get appointed, as you will know from your work, that it's probably a year too late, or at least 6-9 months too late. So achieving that turnaround is almost impossible because the managers are gone, the staff's gone, the rating's gone too inadequate, the environment's deteriorated significantly. So we can all turn it around, but the investment required is huge. There's no guarantee. It's not got a great reputation with the local authority and the CQC. And you're looking at probably a year to 18 months, and that's got to be funded. Yeah. And anybody would only fund that if the differential between what you can get at the end is much better than what you can get now as a closed business. And unfortunately, a lot of the time I think it's going to be as a closed business. Yeah. I think the ones that will survive will have to specialise in something. And I see a number going to sort of specialised autism care, special childcare, things like that. I think the adult social care for residential at low rates, I just don't see how care homes survive, especially if they're old converted buildings in the northwest or other working class areas like that, over multiple floors. Yeah. In a converted building that is not going to be compliant, very difficult to run operationally. It's just impossible to see how they survive without significant investment, or if they do survive, they're not going to make very much money. It's critical for care homes when they got to, my business, I can survive if someone doesn't come in for 2 days. Yeah, it causes me a problem, but nobody's going to die because of it. No. Nobody's, not being fed because of it. And this is, the impact on care homes is much more significant than if my business has an absence for a week or so. They've got to cover that at a treble the cost that it would normally cost them. So it's really difficult to see at the working class areas, multiple floored, 25, 35 bed care homes, how they survive. Certainly if they're just doing normal residential care, unfortunately. So do you see the big corporates taking over the care industry? Yeah, potentially, but there's a level at where they're interested. They're only interested in sort of 50, 60, 70 bed homes on one floor, purpose built. They're not interested in buying a 23 bed care home in Bradford or Wigan or wherever it might be, because they know it's not operationally profitable. Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.